As we welcome in Jason Jordan to the podcast for the very first time, I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Jason Jordan, he is the director of basketball recruiting at Sports Illustrated, and he is Locked On's basketball recruiting insider. First time Jason's on Locked On Buckeyes. There's a lot of big stuff going on the basketball side of things at Ohio State. And Jason, I'm glad you're making your first appearance here on the podcast.
Oh, man, definitely happy to be here.
Man, basketball is my thing. I venture it's yours as well, as you're deep in the recruiting side of things. When it comes to Buckeye recruiting, what are the things you hear from people as you're out and about talking about Ohio State's basketball team on the recruiting side?
Yeah, definitely. That's an offer that rings out. That's a phone call that rings out, and I'm talking among recruits, elite and otherwise. So definitely, they definitely have their footprint. I mean, naturally. I mean, that's something I imagine you guys would to be expected. But that's definitely one of the ones. And I'll be honest, not all offers ring out, even if they post them on social and say, blessed to receive an offer from Timbuktu University. Not all of them ring out. And I would definitely say that the Ohio State offer certainly rings out.
Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I mean, I think that, obviously there's prestige with it. I think a lot of recruits respect the program and respect, the system. And that's what I would say. I would think, there's just a respect that comes with it for sure.
And I venture that's probably the case for Mr. Scotty Middleton, who just committed to Ohio State, I believe, over the weekend. That offer really rang out and what really stuck out among all the other ones as he committed. Like I mentioned, I believe it was over the weekend. Now 6'6", 180 pound, listed as small forward via 247 Sports. Were you shocked that he picked Ohio State when he announced where he'll play college ball?
No, I had heard some back channel stuff. I always stop short of doing predictions. I learned this lesson years ago because I'm privy to a lot of different information, not everything, but I'm privy to some information. Sometimes I say it like that. And so I always love for the kids to have their moment. You know what I'm saying? I hate when people take their moment. So I focus on like the why after the commitment, but no, I wasn't shocked that he picked Ohio State. I had heard on the back channels that that was a strong lean. And then at the end, I heard that was where it was headed. So yeah, big pickup for you guys, for sure.
Really big pickup. One thing that stuck out to me was in his final five, Kansas was there. When he whittled it down to 3, Kansas was not there. I would have been leaning and thinking that Bill Self would have been able to keep this young man in state, but he wasn't able. That wasn't able to happen. He committed to Ohio State, and I watched some film on him, just some quick highlight tapes on YouTube, and I really like what I see. What have you liked from him as he plays ball that sticks out to you?
So I just like the biggest thing I would say is his versatility. And I mean, that's kind of all encompassing, right? So he's scoring on all 3 levels, yes. But like you said, he's 6'6", long and wiry. So he's able to be inserted into multiple different lineups and play multiple different positions just because of his skill set and versatility. And then he can guard multiple positions. So he's a guy you can just plug in and he can kind of get in how he fits in and be productive in the same token. So I love his versatility. And I always call Scotty, he's like an impact guy. So he's going to make whatever that means. He's going to make an impact. Deflection, diving for the loose ball, playing the passing lanes well, defending 94 feet, defending an area, getting out in transition, igniting the break. He's a guy who's going to be productive and he's a really good rebounder too. So definitely a guy who Chris will be able to plug into different lineups and use in a lot of different ways.
One thing that stuck out to me was his explosiveness, and it was kind of just well-timed explosiveness. It matter if it's a burst of speed exploding to drive to the paint, or once he's in the paint exploding for a harder layup, a strong layup, or even a dunk in the paint. That explosiveness stuck out to me. He himself, Scotty Middleton, talked about his defense in an article that I read, and I was kind of like, buddy, you're about to be a senior in high school. You talk about defense. That is rare. I saw the explosiveness. He mentions the defense. I venture Chris Holtmann liked both of those attributes and qualities about him as he's trying to figure out if Scotty Middleton is the right guy to extend an offer to, and hoping that he commits to Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, when you get to your point, when you're getting to high school senior, you're talking about defense. That is rare. I'll tell you, most coaches, especially at the Power 5 level, say the biggest transition to the collegiate level is defense and understanding defensive principles and understanding helping recover and playing areas and the man-to-man is just there's a lot of different nuances in the defense, and so to have a guy like Scotty who is committed on that end of the floor is definitely a breath of fresh air, I'm sure, for Chris and the staff there for sure.
The defense at Ohio State, I don't know how much Ohio State or just college ball you watch, but the defense has been something that's been a little puzzling to me. Yeah. Where I know Chris Holtmann, he was at Butler, he really got those guys to believe and buy into the principles he's preaching and teaching, and really buy into the toughness. And he recruited tough players. For some reason, at Ohio State over the past few years, the toughness on that side of the ball, on the side of the court, has not been there at all. And it's kind of puzzling to me because I know what Chris Holtmann wants his players to do. I don't know if these guys just can't do it. I don't know if their mindset is there. I don't know what it is. But hearing him talk about defense right now, and I do believe he's going to get stronger. His body's going to fill out. He's going to keep growing, especially when he gets to 18, 19, 20 years old, want to get some more of that maturity in his body. Yeah. That defense might be something that he actually is maybe his calling card, might be his bread and butter in college, because Chris Holtmann's going to teach it. And I believe that Scotty Middleton's mindset is, if Holtmann's going to teach it, I'm going to do it because he's going to lead me in the proper way to be the best player I can be.
Yeah, he's definitely built in that mold, like the guy who's going to run through the brick wall. He's definitely that kind of player. So, and to your point, that could be his calling. I mean, he's definitely a lockdown defender at the next level. He definitely has that potential to be a lockdown defender at the collegiate level and beyond, right? Because of his size and his length. So, when you couple that with his gifts on the offensive end, I mean, it's a home run for sure. And then, I mean, that's kind of the makeup. To your point, clearly that's what Chris is going for in your class, with George and Devin and to some degree Austin as well, but definitely George and Devin. Just like kind of pit bull defenders with that mentality. I've definitely seen them compete on the defensive end, and they're guys that can do a lot of different things on both ends of the floor. So it's clear that in this class, he's looking to build on what you're talking about. Defensive-minded players who buy in, and that is the key. You have to buy in to your role as in the defensive scheme. So with this class, I think he's definitely on the right road.
I sure hope so. Hope so.
Yeah.
I myself have been pretty vocal about my disagreement and my disappointment sometimes with how the defense has been played at Ohio State. And so as we talk about Scotty Middleton and his defense and things that stick out with him as we watch him play basketball, you mentioned some other guys, the rest of the players in this recruiting class, with George Washington, Devin Royal, and then Austin Parks. Royal, another kid who just recently committed as well. With this class as a whole, how would you assess this unit?
So a lot of interchangeable parts, right? So especially with George and Devin, I mean, those are guys that obviously George can ignite the break. He's a point guard, but Devin's a guy who can ignite the break as well. So guys who can just fill in lanes and get out in transition, but also play well in the half court set. And Devin's 6'7", long and super bouncy. Like, he never saw a lob that he didn't like. So, and then George is a guy who delivers lobs. So, I mean, there you go. It's the perfect marriage. But guys who are Devin's super explosive, George is super shifty, and Austin's definitely a guy who back to the basket, big body, going to be that presence on both ends of the floor. And he can finish, not a super athletic guy, but a guy who finishes efficiently and knows how to use his body to create space and finish through contact.
Austin Parks, 6'9", 240. I saw the size. I saw him out there, and I was like, oh goodness. Ohio State needs a guy that tall with the mass. You could add weight to him if you want to keep him at 240. You could put muscle on, trim down some fat. I mean, you could really make him be a solid piece down low. Ohio State needs that guy, and I think Austin Parks fits a role. Not saying immediately, but down the road, year 2, year 3, fills a role for Ohio State where he can be kind of that glue guy down low where you can rely on him to do a lot of things you want your big man to do.
Certainly, potentially, I would say that with a logical progression, I would definitely say he could be the guy you're talking about. He definitely has a skill set to do it. And especially if the fans there are willing to wait, I definitely see him as a guy who could fill that role for sure. Because he's a workhorse, right? And I think he's very skilled. But it's all, it's timing, it's opportunity and things like that. And then it's catching on, it's buying in. He won't have a problem buying in, but I think he needs to bake a little bit in the oven, but I think he has a skill set and the mentality to be the player you're talking about for sure.
What sticks out? I know you highlighted Royal and Washington in their interchangeability, but also kind of the defensive aspects that they bring.
Yeah.
Between those two guys, what's one attribute that's not defensive-wise or interchangeable kind of parts that you would say those two guys, they can carry this to Ohio State once they're on campus?
Well, it would be Devin, and it's definitely the athleticism, right? Because he's a wow factor guy. Like, so he's going to get the momentum shifting dunks, right? And that's a thing. Like, it's not just like, he can dunk. That's really a thing. I've had, I talked to a couple head coaches that say that accounts for 6 to 8 points over the course of a game, right? The momentum shift. So you want a guy like that who can be high octane and get the crowd behind the team and give them that momentum push, especially when it's tough to get a bucket here and there.
I agree with that. Who would you think? So Ohio State currently has 4 guys in the class: Scotty Middleton, George Washington, Devin Royal, Austin Parks, 4 guys that are hard verbal commits to Ohio State right now. Do you see a scenario where they add a 5th player to this group?
Well, potentially. I mean, I think for the right player, I think they would definitely do that. Now, I'll say this a lot at Peach Jam. I talked to multiple coaches that said, and I said this on another show, like just talking to like, Jay, you better talk to them young boys, especially them 2024s. Like there ain't no more 4 and 5 man classes. Like, with this transfer portal, we got to hold out a spot. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just it's just different. What they were saying is we're all learning on the fly. Like, is it smart to hold that spot? Should we go ahead and grab this kid? And I know that Ohio State made the top 5 for Dalen Swain. Now they would take him, like they would take Dalen if he's ready to come. I definitely think that would be your 5-man class. So I think for the right kid and for, to grab the talent, they're not going to pass up the talent. I think they would take him, and they would take a guy like him, his tier or higher.
Yeah. So no thought of a 6th player? Too many?
At this point, you have to hold out a spot for a trade. You have to. You have to. So I think that's what they would reserve that 1 or 2 spots for if they don't get a kid like him.
Jason, this has been a lot of fun. I love having you on the show for the very first time. If you could let everyone know where they can follow you on Twitter, then maybe follow along online as well at SI to read some things you're doing and SI is doing via the basketball recruiting.
Yeah, well, SI.com, college basketball section. I'm there all the time, and on Twitter, Jason Jordan SI, Instagram, Jason C Jordan. So, come check me out. Love to have you.
And guys, you can follow me on Twitter at JSteven07. Told you we're going to be talking a little basketball recruiting here on the podcast with Jason Jordan. His first appearance here on the podcast. He will be back. Jason, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.